All right, Subhajit, a formal welcome to you. Thanks so much for being a GAP's early member, a patron, and agreeing to do this talk to us and to all the members, and which we are hoping would be a very inspirational one through your journey. Right. So the topic today is the strategies to rise, strategies for rising to a strategy role. Right, and it's a bit of a tongue twister, I realized, but but yeah. So you are a strategic growth director with Microsoft today. Let's start with that. Your current role. Why don't you tell us a bit about what your role requires you to do today in Microsoft? Over to you.
Thanks, Rishi. So first of all, thanks to the platform and you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And I hope, as you mentioned, this is an informal chat, and I hope it serves the purpose of the chat, which is to help other fellow members on this platform to learn and get some insights, in terms of how they could chart their paths, probably learning a few tips and tricks from my experience and my roadmap.
Absolutely.
So thanks a lot for that. So my current role is, as you mentioned, I'm a director in the strategic growth team of Microsoft India. Um, this role is quite unique, and in fact, it was created earlier this year. So traditionally, Microsoft did not have a strategy or planning role as such. Most of our corporate planning, etc., happens in the head office, which is Redmond. So therefore, this is called strategic growth, and this role is actually focused on uh, formulating and shaping growth strategies for the India subsidiary, and then going ahead and implementing it. So
Mhm.
this role, while it is, it has strategy, I think a lot of it is to also do about implementing that strategy and realizing the benefits within a
Okay.
certain period of time. So a little bit of deep dive into it. So essentially for every company, there would be a normal operating model. There would be current products, solutions, platforms that are sold, and you earn revenue from it. But every company, I think, in today's world needs to also start thinking that what's the future, where would its play be, say, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line? And what are those big bets that companies need to start investing in, seeding in right from now, so that, 2, 3 years later, you're in that right position to leverage that advantage. So this role is a bit about that. It is about scanning the market. It is about scanning industries and actually identifying various opportunity spaces, and kind of uh, developing a view to say that these opportunity spaces would become, are they very big, are they very significant, are they very critical and aligned to the chart that the company has, and then actually betting on some of those, to say that we will start co-investing, co-creating, whether it's creation of IP, whether it's creation of assets. And this could happen with customers, this could happen with our partner network, and build these assets, and try to be ready when the time comes. So it's about essentially figuring out what's going to become big in future, and uh, do a judicious judgment to invest resources on it. So
Wow.
that's what I do essentially for a living.
Sounds quite exciting. It's almost like you are mini Bill Gates of India, right, for Microsoft. So, what kind of a planning horizon do you work with today?
See, for all opportunities, we kind of break this into, three horizons. So there's a very short-term horizon, which is like immediate and now. So if there is a large opportunity in the market which needs to be addressed, and let's say a disruption like COVID resulted in a lot of new opportunities which we would not have
Mhm.
thought of, right? That opportunity is immediate and now, and it has to be addressed. So
Absolutely.
you kind of shape it, you put a structure around it, and then let the regular business teams take it forward. So you have the sales team, marketing team, operations team, they take it forward. There's a second bucket, which is, let's say, typically may take 4 to 6 months to realize. Okay, and there is some bit of preparation, planning, creation of work products that are required to deliver that and take to market. So that's the second bucket, I would say, which is can be realized in 6 to 7 months, and you start accruing that benefit. And then there are the others, which are those real big bets, which are really, you're trying to always anticipate what's going to become big. And then you bet on some of those and try to develop it. These could be in the range of 1 to 2 years to realize.
Right. So it's both immediate, short, and midterm that you would be working on. Okay. So how aspirational was this role for you? I mean, is this something you wanted to eventually land up in, or was it something that popped up and you thought, wow, this looks interesting and that sort of thing? So was it strategic from your perspective, or was it an incidental opening that came your way?
So, to some extent, it came my way. I did not really aspire to do a role like this, or I did not really plan towards getting here. But as you know, my background, I have a long management consulting experience, and I was doing strategy and operations consulting for a long time. And consulting was also changing, So over the last 4 or 5 years, I would say that. Most of the strategy and operations kind of consulting has become more implementation oriented. So clients wanted the strategy to be developed, but then also to be implemented. So these would turn out to be longer engagements, wherein
Mhm.
maybe these are 18 months, 24 months engagements. And the first 3, 4 months, you kind of strategize, you do all the market research, you validate your hypothesis and so on and so forth, and then chart out a roadmap for the client. Then you go ahead and implement this. So anyway,
Mhm.
that had started on the consulting side as well. But when this came my way, what I saw essentially was an ability to raise the bar in terms of impact. Because when you are working for a single client in a consulting world, you are doing one project, which might have
Mhm.
a certain impact for that particular client. But when
Mhm.
you do this as a ecosystem player, where I consider Microsoft and some of these big tech companies, essentially they are platform companies nowadays. And
Mhm.
more than what they build, they actually enable a lot of more people to build on top of
Right.
what they create. So by doing that, you are actually increasing the impact and the spectrum much bigger. So you can actually say that, look at certain industry spaces and say, for example, a healthcare industry, or let's say a logistics industry, and you can say that, I'm going to create some assets and IP today, which is literally going to become the standard or the platform to build on for the next two,
Mhm.
3 years. And therefore,
Mhm.
the entire country and the entire ecosystem and industry players are going to play on it.
Mhm.
So the ability and the scope to create something much larger, and
Right.
which has transformational impact on the society, on the country, on industries is something that I saw in this role. And that really attracted me. And I think I did not have ever a second opinion about thinking, whether I should take it or not.
Okay. And that's a very important and interesting point you made. Like on the other side of the table, you were impacting but a company at a time. And now in this side, and especially with a player like Microsoft, you have a much larger spectrum of impact, right, for whatever Microsoft does. So it's just not the company, but all the ancillary players and the market per se that gets impacted. Awesome. So it what's coming up is that you actually got groomed over a period of time to be very attractive for Microsoft to lead this role, right? And of course, the role attracted you as well. So let's go back to starting of your journey, say back to your college, and let's see how you got here from there. So why don't you take us back to your campus, and then things that you would want to share, things that you did right, things you missed out, that groomed you over a period of time to where you are.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I think almost 20 years back, I think I went to my engineering college, and I studied computer science.
Mhm.
And I was very good at coding and programming, and I wanted to become a techie essentially, and I wanted to create stuff. And incidentally, I did a internship with Microsoft in my third year of engineering, way back
Okay.
in
Okay.
2001. And that was a 2 3 month engagement where it was a project based intervention. Uh, and Microsoft was an aspirational company definitely at that time. Okay. And but however, as it happens, I landed up in a consulting company after my graduation.
And
And
that was EY, or was it
I
Deloitte?
joined PwC.
PwC. Okay.
And I joined a technical role out there. So there was,
Okay.
in those days, it was technology advisory services, is what it we called. It was essentially technology consulting and implementation. Okay, and I
Mm-hmm.
was in an implementation role at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined that company, and all around me there were consultants, and I got a completely different perspective. So a very different perspective developed, which introduced me to this world of business processes, looking at things from a business side of things rather than hardcore tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I got very influenced by that, and I think my worldview and life direction changed out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it became more aspirational to know the business process side, the operations optimization side, to be able to talk to the business stakeholders and the client, etc. And it led me to do an MBA, which was a kind of a natural progression, but
Mm-hmm.
it was much more uh, much more, it was done with much more clarity than if I had done a MBA either immediately after my engineering, or even if I had gone from a tech company, I may not have been able to appreciate it much. But when I actually landed up in my MBA, even before starting the course, if you gave me any value chain of almost any industry, I would be able to tell you what are the processes across that value chain. And
Awesome.
that was
So,
because
how much time did you spend in PwC before
So about three
going
years, about
PS?
three
And that's
years,
pretty
and
good. Yeah.
I did all sorts of industries, and I implemented ERP solutions, which gave me a holistic, integrated
Mm-hmm.
view of business processes, and how processes in one part of the organization impact the other. So that was a very, very valuable experience. And therefore, when I did the whole MBA course, I was much more aware. I knew how to apply it. So I knew that how all this gets applied outside. And my choice of electives, my choice of focus areas also became much sharper. Of course, I also figured out that I may not be good at one or two things. So, that realization also happened. But then, essentially, my aspiration to be a consultant, be on the business side of things, became very strong, and slowly that whole strength and competence that I had built on programming, and that interest waned.
Mm-hmm.
So when I graduated out of MBA, I again joined back PwC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I joined on the business consulting side of PwC then, and I was more on processes and operations transformation and so on and so forth. But therefore, the role changed, but the direction was set in those early years, and then it's been a journey, So from um, process consulting to doing, let's say, large bid advisories, to doing large program management, of government entities, PSUs, etc., to moving to pure play strategy consulting, wherein doing, let's say, acquisition fitments, doing, uh, M&A due diligence, doing growth strategies, market entry strategies, doing large scale supply chain transformation, distribution transformation, all of that started happening. And I think I had many lives in consulting also. So
Mm-hmm.
every 3 4 years, I could actually move my competency a little bit, taking adjacencies and work on it. But yeah, I think being in that strategic role and being able to kind of advise senior leaders was very aspirational when I
Mm.
was doing my studies, and I realized it, and I kind of lived that life.
Amazing. So, were there any unconventional roles or projects that you picked up that you were to add on to your experience that you were not very confident that something that we have done quite a bit, and so we find it very easy to. It only changes the client, right? And you are almost itching to go there and showcase your expertise, right? And that comes easy. But there are others which are like which gives you a little bit of butterflies in your stomach, and you think whether you'll be able to do, but you want to do it, and it's a bit unconventional. So, any such experiences during your consulting days?
No, absolutely. I think from the transition that I did from, let's say, process consulting or functional consulting to the strategy consulting side, the
Mm-hmm.
biggest change that happened and the change that I had to kind of overcome was strategy consulting is all about dealing with ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the client is asking you a question which, if they knew, they wouldn't be coming and asking. And
True.
if they were in that business for so many years and they don't know that answer, and you are sometimes even not aware of the industry very deeply, you are not very close to the company. I mean, yeah, you will learn in 1 or 2 months, but you've not been there. And from that state of ambiguity to be able to bring clarity as to what the client should do, I realized that as a consultant, you will have to deal with a lot of ambiguity, and you
Mm-hmm.
will not know the subject matter, or you'll have to figure out a lot of things. And this comes through a combination of things that happen. You reach out to experts give you perspective. There are a lot of internal resources that these firms have, so you leverage those knowledge sources. You do a lot of primary study. I think one of the things that taught me was to actually go out in the market and shamelessly ask things that you needed very desperately, but the others were not even interested in giving that information to you. I mean, why would a third party who didn't know you spend 1 hour of his time with you to educate you on something which you needed, but he didn't have anything to do with it? But I
True.
learned those tactics to kind of get extract value out of people, of networks, how to reach out to different sides of the industry and assimilate all that information. And I think the initial transition was a little difficult, but as you master it, so I think strategy is a lot about dealing with ambiguity, whether you do it from the consulting side or you do it from a company side where you're leading strategy, because people are banking on you to define the roadmap, and if that is wrong, essentially you lose many years and a lot of effort and resources. But you have to bring clarity out of that ambiguity, and I think there is no prescribed way of doing it. All those frameworks, etc., that you learn in any B school is fine, but I think finally it is about your own experience, intuition, judgment to be able to bring all this together and make it work for you. And
So, if
over a period of time, you gain confidence. You know that you know that you were going in the right direction or you're not going in the right direction. You
so you
get
kind of form your own learning paths that you can probably utilize. So, what I wanted to know, what kind of personality attributes you think a person should have to be able to deal with these kind of roles like strategy that now you looking back, obviously you had, but I know it's not defined anywhere, but if you were to put it in a box, looking back at your own self, what would you say, what would be the those characteristics that a person should have to be able to do well?
So I think one is being very flexible, because you have to
Mhm.
be very flexible and you have to be very adaptive in the sense that you go in one direction and you face hurdles and you have to probably rebound and come back and then again start afresh. So if it disturbs you too much, then it's a problem, because there is no charted path. Nobody knows,
Mhm.
and then otherwise they would not need you. So,
Mhm.
one is being very flexible, being adaptive, and being comfortable with change, because every time the landscape changes, the problem statement changes. You're dealing with a lot of unknown always. The second, I think, is about continuous learning, to be able to learn, to be able to connect dots and extrapolate, because you learn something from a different project in a different industry, but if you are able to draw some parallels,
Totally.
say that okay, if that worked there, then maybe even here this could apply. And
Mhm.
to be able to have that wide horizon to say that I'm okay to try out these things and see if it works. uh, the third thing I would say is a lot of persistence as well, because uh, uh, more and more, I want to drill down that point on implementation, because strategy is no more a document. It's not a 5-year plan. It's not an Excel model. It's not about creating a presentation. It has no meaning if it doesn't translate and really realize benefits for business. So it is also about a lot of persistence, because you might have charted the path right, but initially you're going to face a lot of hurdles. You're going to face challenges in implementing it, and a lot of times maybe your hypothesis will be also proven wrong, but you'll still have to tread that path long enough to figure out whether it's the right strategy or the wrong strategy. And sometimes you may get it wrong, but I think you need to try enough to ensure that you're really confident that this is not the right path, and you need to deflect.
Okay. And that brings me to a point that a lot of people ask about this consulting firms, right? And like you said, that if client knew himself, they would execute it. But the fact is that they have been running business for X number of years, right? It could be 10, it could be 50 or whatever. And then you come in, with an outsider, with the with the pitch that you would tell them what to do, right? And about strategy. The the perception a lot of people have, that how is that possible, right? And how can somebody who has just walked in tell that people, and especially the employees, they feel from on the other side of the table that we have been working here for so long, and these guys come and tell us. So how did you guys see it? I'm sure it's not something that you haven't heard. So how did you on the other side of the table deal with this, and how do you feel about that perception, and what makes you advise your clients, I mean, in your
Yeah.
previous roles? Yeah.
No, no, this is a interesting question, and I think there are a lot of consulting jokes around this as well. Uh, um, so I first of all acknowledge that this is possibly a problem, okay, of the consulting industry, and that's how it is, unfortunately, and that's how it's always been. Now, how one should tackle, or how I tackled it through my journey, is one is first acknowledging that the client knows his business much better than I do.
Hmm.
Uh, First, being humble and being open to learning from your client is, I think, one of the first traits that will get you respect. Because
Excellent.
if you go and try and say that I know it all, then definitely you don't know it all, because they have been doing it for tens of years, and you've been probably you may have done a few projects if you're lucky, in the same space, right? So I'm not generalizing, neither am I referring to any of my employers here, but I think that's what individuals can try and do, which is to say that I'm willing to learn. I do bring a lot of advantage, which is I have access to a lot of knowledge
Hmm.
in a structured way. So if you ask me a certain problem in a certain industry, in a certain geography, I have some case studies, I have some precedences which I can refer to and tell you what worked there. So there are some learnings. The second thing is there are experts within the consulting company as well. There are a lot of people, and more, consultants are actually trying to pivot around industries and competencies more and more, so that they do more repeatable job, they keep learning, and they're able to then extrapolate that learning into related work. So that is there. The third thing is an ability to look at it from a structured thinking perspective, because when you are inside the system as a client, you are sometimes not able to solve for it.
That's true.
You
That's
are
true.
sometimes not able to overcome the political challenges or the situation that may be there in a client place. But being an outsider, you can call out the problem very clearly in an
Hmm.
unbiased way. uh, Next thing I would say is to be able to take a fresh perspective, because the client may be completely biased and completely, there would be group think happening, Everybody tends to follow the same herd, right? Coming from outside, you can actually question a very fundamental thing and challenge which nobody.
Mm.
So these are some of the things I think that would help consultants to do that. And at the end, if you uh, try and make that an advantage that your client knows better than you, because you're
Mm.
complimenting the client. See, finally, it's not your win. You are not winning or losing against the client.
It's
It's
not a
not that
match
the
itself.
client wins or you win. Actually, both of you should win.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter from where it comes, as long as
Mm.
you're able to leverage the best of the competencies, skills, knowledge, etc., and mesh all that, and come with a solution where that works. That's the winning solution.
Very, very well put, Subhajit. And I really like the fact that you started with it with humility. That you have to be accepting that client knows better, and that kind of breaks the any kind of notion at their end. So that's excellent. And then all the points that you put in, I totally agree with that. Sometimes within the company, you kind of miss wood for the forest, what they say. So you are not able to take that perspective from a distance. So that, and definitely the pool of knowledge that one gets in, so it becomes missing in the puzzle that a consultant can bring in. So excellent. Now that takes me to the next question I would want to ask you is about the environment in these consulting companies that possibly do you think that makes one more suited for kind of strategy kind of roles versus an industry environment because of your exposure to the perspective, different environments, different companies, and also the culture within the consulting environment. Tell us more about that because you've worked in PwC, KPMG, of course. Have you worked in any of the other two big fours?
Okay, EY as well.
EMI as well. So this 3 out of 4. So they're pretty deep experience. So tell us more about the environment there.
So I think uh, it's not a necessary condition, but it may be a sufficient condition. So you don't have to be a consultant to take up a strategy role or a planning role. But
Mhm.
if you've been a consultant and you've especially been on the strategy consulting side of these firms, because they also do a lot of risk related work, they do a lot of process related work, they do a lot of tech related work, right? So it is not necessary that a consultant would always be fit for a strategy role. But if you've been on that side, it definitely gives you that kind of perspective and thinking, kind of grooms you over the years. But even otherwise, if somebody starts his journey from the industry side and he's actually into maybe one or two functions, and he's, uh, let's say he's in operations or supply chain or finance or marketing or sales, and he started his career with that and he's built uh, competence. I think the ability to understand that industry and the nuances, the competitive landscape, etc., is a good learning ground for a person to take up the strategy role. Well, I think what is important is to have this bent of strategic thinking to be imbibed. It doesn't
Mhm.
come naturally. I think everybody develops it. So even as a consultant or on the industry side, as a function lead or a functional team member, I could just deal with the operational and tactical stuff and never question. And I could just keep doing the same thing over and over again without questioning.
Mhm.
But there are certain people who will always think that why am I doing this? Is there a better way to do this? Is
Mhm.
this the right direction to take? Let me see what my competition is doing. See, they are doing something which is very unique and different, and that can become a game changer going forward. And people who have this particular curiosity, I think curiosity is another element that I would add to that list of things that you said people need to have. They will actually start thinking, and if you start thinking, then you can put a frame, you can then decide where to go, how do you go, and the what and how can be defined. But there would be a lot of people who don't have that bent of mind, or they don't train themselves to think that way. And then you may remain in that operational rut, for a long time. So you will become an expert in what you do, but you may not have that ability to really think ahead.
Mhm. And how much you think the culture and environment plays a role in grooming this, thinking mind or curiosity? Or is it that people encourage you when you come up with new ideas or question things and another way of doing it, or they say, they get you back to the, due dates, finish your job first, and then that kind of kills it. I have to first finish it. If you get time, then think about something. So I'm just making it up here, but you get what I'm saying, right? So how much of that you think is important, and what has been your observation? You've been to several companies and clients, so you would have a perspective of what is the general scenario, and of course in the consulting world. So how much of that plays a role?
No, it definitely plays a role. So, having a positive learning culture, a culture that encourages curiosity, questions, etc., is always going to groom better leaders, better professionals, and better strategy professionals, possibly. Um, but it is also left to the individual. So
Mhm.
sometimes an individual, even in a stifling environment which doesn't encourage so much of openness, can still get cues from outside, because today you are not really bound by the walls or the boundaries of your corporate entity, right?
Mhm.
You are on social media, you know what's happening in the industry. There are several ways in which news and events and happenings percolate to you, right? And there are learnings to be taken from many places. So if an individual is motivated in the right manner, I think he or she can still take that and overcome that culture of the immediate surroundings.
Right. So it's the
So
initiative that one takes to ensure that happens. So that also brings me to a question, a self curiosity. That, by the way, are you still there? Subhajit? Yeah, probably has a network issue. Let's give him a hi, chat. Thanks.
Hi Rishi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining in.
I think he's still there. No, I think he's stopped.
Yeah, he probably had a network issue. We'll just give him a minute.
Yeah.
Hi, Subhajit.
yeah, sorry, the power went off, so we can
Yeah,
start.
no problem. Somehow I can just see myself here. Uh, okay, so you can hear me still, right? Oh, I'm still having an issue. Ah,
I can hear you, Rishi.
okay, great. Yeah. So some of the guys who are on board wanted to know some examples from your career where you probably used your own inquisitiveness to which was not really demanded probably from the job, but you out of your own will and curiosity went out of the way to learn and develop your thought process, and probably brought in another perspective on the table. So any examples that you would want to share, maybe without naming the client or whatever, but just the scenario.
So let me first share a principle that I follow in my life, Rishi. So, I've always been greatly motivated by this line from this movie Three Idiots, where Amir Khan actually says that you can go and sit in any class and learn anything if you want to learn. You don't have to be part of the class. So essentially, in my consulting career and in my current career now, uh, whichever industry that I've worked in, so there would be times when you take up new industries which are first time for you. So there are examples in my life, for example, for a period of time, I worked very, very deeply in manufacturing, and I tried understanding discrete manufacturing as well as process manufacturing very, very deeply. And I was pretty good at it. I mean, I tried to understand every nuance of that. Then I went into mining and metals industry, and I used to study operational effectiveness of mines, etc., in many companies. And I didn't go into underground mines, but I worked a lot on open cast mines. And this was a totally different environment. And while I tried to put my operations principles into that, extending from manufacturing, I understood it's very different. So when I used to do these client visits, site visits as part of these projects, maybe it was possible for me to do a superficial study and go back to my air conditioned room or hotel room and go and work there. But I ensured as an individual that I learn every small nitty gritty as an aspect that is presented to me. So keep on asking, go to every facility, get all the perspectives, because I truly believe that I may not ever get that opportunity again.
Hmm. So did you actually tour all the manufacturing plants, the mines, even though it wasn't required of you to do that? You could be very well sitting in the conference room where all consultants sit and finish your report.
I have been into steel melting shops, what we call SMS. I've gone to blast furnaces. I've gone to this is on the steel processing side. I've been in absolute rural open cast mines, seen quarrying happening. Uh, I used to do that as a learning process because I
Your own.
yeah. So not going out of the scope of work, but I mean, no, I mean, if I'm told to study operations, I wouldn't go and study finance there. But within that scope of work, I would try and be as comprehensive as possible, and I would do as detailed a work as possible, because I truly believe that this learning is a gift. uh, when the client has opened the door that day for me to do the study, I have the right to ask everything, and whatever I ask, I will be given that answer or that clarification. But after 6 months, if I want to study that and come again, I may not have that opportunity again.
Hmm.
So I did this extensively. I mean, uh, even as a director, I would actually walk the markets very extensively. I would meet retail clients, I would meet distributors in remotest parts of the country to understand what are the issues, how do you increase distribution there. So there are many examples across the board, and I've done some very unique projects as well. I mean, I'll share one or two stories. So mining was one which is very extreme, So almost all across Orissa, to the remotest parts of Orissa, I would have studied a lot of mines and understood how different metals are mined and what are the processes, practices. I was doing a project with a QSR kind of a company. Not really I mean, it's a QSR, but it's more in the desert side of things. And I actually went into the processing hub one day, and I saw a lot of donuts getting manufactured, and I ran the entire batch of donuts one day, early morning, 7 a.m. On a Sunday morning. Me and a couple of my team members went and ran this processing batch for them.
Yourselves.
Yeah, with the people, of course, but
Of course, yeah. With
but
you.
actually seeing each step, starting from the raw material to the finished product coming out of the line, and it was a 90-minute or 120-minute process. There was absolutely no need to do such things for the project that I was doing. But I think it's the curiosity to learn. It remains an experience. It remains as a
Mhm.
story that I can share with you today.
And did it
So,
taste well? When I'm sure you had some for the breakfast.
absolutely. So there are these very unique examples. I think places that I've visited, experiences that I've had, which I cherish, and I think you should just maximize the opportunity you get in such cases.
Right. Again, I think these are some very, very good learnings for especially the young guys who are, at least early part of their career, to really go beyond what is the fixed mandate of theirs to learn. And like you said, that you are in that class that day, so make most use of it, whether you're in client place, you're in the plant, wherever, and learn as much as you can, and that all adds up one day, right, to your experiences. So excellent. Did you ever have this thought of switching the chair to the other side of the table in the industry, since you used to visit so many, and I'm sure many clients would have wanted you to join them, as it always happens with good consultants. So was there any attraction to be on the industry side and drive operations or strategy for the client anytime before than you did it now? But and if not, then why?
So there are two, three times that happened when customers or clients actually asked me to come onto the other side, and at different junctures. Once it happened when I was still a consultant, and once it happened when I was a manager, and then once it happened, I think I was a associate director or so, in different, very different industries. But uh, I think why I stuck onto the consulting side for a long, long time was the eagerness to learn new things. The fact that you're able to work with two, three, or four different, very different kinds of clients in the year.
Mm,
Your learning is very diverse. Kept me going. Um, so the thought to go on the other side would have to be only if it was very compelling and very interesting, like the current one, where I thought that the impact could be much higher. Second thing is, I also see the influence of digital shaping our worlds in a very big way. And it has just started, and this is the tip of the iceberg. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, as our children grow up, I think they are going to, I mean, they are AI native born, and they are going to do and behave and work and learn in very different world, which is shaped by uh, high tech. And I think this is a great opportunity to learn that,
mm,
because how do you now blend, so it's almost a full circle for me, starting with tech, going on to the business
yeah.
side, and then coming to the new tech, which is
Mm,
radically and transformationally different from the transactional systems and other stuff that was going on earlier. but
mm,
but now, actually, the human and computer interaction, or human and AI interaction, is real. It is real in our lives today, and
true.
the pervasiveness of that is going to increase over the next few years. And I see this as a great opportunity to learn that, and uh, try and anticipate what's going to happen, and be at least a footnote in some of those transformations that happen.
Absolutely. And I think definitely now that when we track Microsoft and its moves, we would know who is the man behind it in this part of the world for sure. And in terms of the technology, I think when you joined Microsoft first after your engineering, what was sci-fi then is actually reality today, right? 20 years down the line. So it is amazing how much has changed. But
So I'll share an anecdote with you on that, if you
mm,
allow me. So around that same time, around my third year of engineering, uh, this was actually, I was going to join the internship in Bombay, and I was taking a train and going, and I was reading this book of Bill Gates, The Road Ahead.
mm,
And a lot of things there spoke about the phone being able to show the person who you're speaking to,
really.
and a lot of that, so I don't really recall. It's long, long time that I've read that book, but it had a lot of futuristic ideas, which I said, okay,
Mm,
I mean, this is like really brilliant, if this happens. Now, today, all that has already happened. If you go back and read that book, you will see that a lot of those ideas have translated today. And the way we are speaking right now, so
yeah.
I mean,
It,
20 years back, if somebody told me that this is how we are going to interact, it would have been sci-fi for me, right? So today
absolutely.
it's
That's what
about,
I'm saying.
yeah. So today it's
It's
about anticipating what's going to happen in the next 5, 10 years, and I think the pace of change is exponential right now.
yes, yes.
And I think for strategy professionals or planning professionals, I think what's the implication of that is the plan needs refreshed much more frequently, The
Hmm.
plan cannot be
The
a long-term.
frequency is,
Yeah. So
yeah.
5-year plans have almost become redundant. I don't think it is completely useless.
Hmm.
At the most, you can plan for 2 years or 3 years at the most, and you will have to keep refreshing it and rebaselining it, because there'll be so many other disruptions from outside that your plan will go for a toss anyway.
Right. And you think this has got accelerated due to the pandemic this year? This whole change in something perhaps would have happened because of technology over a period of time, but this has got compressed within this year itself because of this pandemic. So a lot has changed for forever in planning cycles.
The industry view largely is that 2 years of digital transformation has happened in 2 months because of
Hmm.
the onset of COVID. And I think the good part, and I've been observing a lot of my clients, how they have been doing, etc., are my partners and customers in my current role. I think the companies who were fortified with the right digital capabilities, skill sets, etc., have done better in this COVID situation than others who were found to be scrambling to figure out what to do. So definitely digital investments paid that dividend in this time of crisis. And I think
Hmm.
more and more people make these use cases very real, and they are able to leverage tech in the right spirit and in the right manner, which is pervasive, which is not just one isolated island of excellence, but it really percolates across the business, across all its customer base. I think those companies will surely do well. I think the disruption before this was the demonetization disruption we had seen. So
Hmm.
about 2 years back or 3 years back, whenever it was,
That also accelerated the
that
digitization.
accelerated the
Yeah.
digital payment side radically. I mean, people
Hmm.
just got onboarded, and the same has happened now. And the more you're on that side, you have a propensity to succeed in this kind of situations more than others.
True. True. Okay, so my one again, these are my own questions, and I'm using this opportunity to clarify from you, and then I'll give Chahat and Sheetal chance as well. But what I want to know is from your perspective, and I'm sure you've dealt with like so many people on the planning side in the industry. I want to know what are things that you observed about their approach, and you think that they can do better, or there is a gap perhaps, because that's the reason the consultants are called in, right? Because the teams internally are not able to do it well, right? So in terms of the professionals, in terms of the company itself, on the industry, because we have almost majority of the members are working in the industry, right? They're not in the consulting space at the moment in CAP. So what would be your observation and something that you want to give them a feedback on about the approaches, about the skill sets, about anything that you would sum up from your experience?
So I think one of the things that has been a lacunae traditionally, may be changing now, is
Oops, I think this is a return of the electricity that went earlier.
Rishi, I'm back.
Yeah, so we couldn't hear any thing about your answers. So you start from
Yeah.
where. Yeah.
Just start. So the traditional lacunae that we have seen from the strategy planning units within companies is often they are a little bit disconnected from the practical realities of the market, of the customer, of the key stakeholders
Mhm.
on either side. A lot of times, these planning units or strategy units have been just very symbolic, very leadership oriented, to be able to do some research and churn out some numbers and present a view. But the ability to come down and see the reality and validate that, and take those inputs has not been very great. So and that's where maybe a lot of consultants came in, where consultants would actually spend a lot of feet in the street, to get
Hmm.
that picture validated. So that is one thing I think which I see as a difference between the two. If you take a parallel and you see what's happened with the country, So we used to have a institution called Planning Commission instituted for several years, which used to
Decades.
churn out 5-year plans.
Mm,
5-year plans. Now, essentially, 5-year plans are redundant, like for companies, for the country as well. And
mm,
therefore, now you have a Niti Ayog, which is, if you see the modality in which they work more implementation oriented. So they actually work in a project mode
mm.
to deliver initiatives, to deliver impact in a different way. It is not so much about presenting a plan, presenting a lot of numbers. They're actually taking improvement initiatives one at a time and then going ahead and implementing it through the ecosystem. So I think a very similar change needs to happen. More and more, it has to be strategy implementation and change rather than just planning.
Okay. So, does that mean that the strategy professionals of the future or from here onwards could actually come from any function, and anybody who has a track record of, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, I thought it got paused again. So anybody who has a good track record of executing a project well, the planning the project, executing it, and doing it again and again. A successful track record. It could be in any function. So if you are eventually aiming for that designation of a strategy officer, then these are the things you should do. First of all, the attributes that you mentioned about curiosity, the learning, being in a classroom every day, and then followed by successfully proving your project management skills of actually implementing rather than just making presentations at ideating level. So obviously ideation is required, but a more stronger execution is. So is my summing up of the situation or the requirement correct, or would you want to add something to that?
Yes, I think it is largely correct. And I think that point that I brought about strategic thinking or ability to
Mhm,
see the big picture, I think if that is complemented with strong implementation capabilities, I think that's a very good recipe for professionals to aspire for this kind of a role where you blend good thinking and then you are able to implement that thinking. So
and what are some of the outside like educational learning that one should also target? Now nowadays we have this, again, what pandemic has done is accelerated the culture of online learning, right, of these MOOC platforms and everything. You think does that help in terms of doing courses in project management, strategy, whatever, or it's not as much helpful, it's actually all on the job experience, or one should have? What's your take on that?
no, I think it plays a role, and one should choose the courses. There are plethora of courses and platforms today. So actually, there is a problem of abundance that you have too much there to absorb or take. So you need to be a little careful and judicious about what you take, and that is completely a personal judgment. Where you are today, where do you want to go, and therefore what should help you. Uh, I believe in taking more small, and when I personally do this, I believe in taking smaller courses, not big bang courses. I'm very conscious that I should complete something which I took. I should be.
That's another big
Yeah,
problem.
so I always see whether I will be able to complete it, because there's no point taking something and then leaving it half finished. So for me, those smaller interventions, smaller courses, shorter duration courses actually work, and maybe I can do more of them to
Hmm.
kind of complement my work experience. That definitely plays a role. I am a little choosy and picky about what I really choose to spend my time on
So
the
do
learning.
you also have yourself used any of these open platforms like Udemy or Coursera, or which one do you think is a good bet according to you?
See, that's a difficult one to answer. And I wouldn't mention a particular name because that won't be right. But I think every platform has its own pros and cons.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think you should really see the course content, the
Course content.
duration, the faculty, the mode of learning and knowledge exchange, and then decide on a particular course. So what may be right for you may not be right for me. So it has to be really tailored, but you have a lot of courses out there to do.
Absolutely, and I've been talking to people, and there are companies who are providing their LMS platforms. The biggest problem people are facing is which one to choose, which one to do, because and that's why most of the courses are half done. Even for the these platforms, very few people actually complete it, and that's becoming another side of the problem. So you start and you are like now halfway through. Right. So great, Subhajit. I think I really enjoyed this. I got many of my questions answered through you. And since you are on our platform, I'm sure you would be open to answering or advising anybody who reaches out to you, pings you on Gap in terms of any suggestion, guidance a person needs. I would also want to let Sheetal or Chahat, who are there on the call live, anything they would want to ask you. Guys, go ahead and shoot your questions.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and this is really useful. Thanks for sharing the information. So one question that I have is, so
This is Chahat, by the way. Chahat, you didn't
yeah,
introduce
this is
yourself.
Chahat. So this is Chahat here, and I lead sales analytics for South region for Diageo. So I'm into Alcobev industry, and one challenge that I always face is, so Diageo being, and Alcobev for that matter of fact, these organizations are all sales-driven organizations, and sales is the heart of the organization, right? So in these organizations, it becomes very challenging to, drive businesses only basis the data, because at the end of the day, sales, the sales leadership have a say, and a high say in terms of what's happening on ground. So like what advice do you have, and or if you have worked with any sales driven organization, so how consulting, has helped these organizations as an IC sort of role, right? How were they able to drive strategies, business decisions, and what was the outcome? If you could share one example.
So I think, see, I've worked on a lot of the sales transformation kind of work with industries similar to yours, so basically consumer goods or retail, and if it is a sales transformation kind of a role, I mean, strategies also are built for different purposes, right? So if the strategy is for essentially growth or revenue enhancement or some such prerogative, then it actually makes a lot of sense to take the lens of sales teams and what inputs and signals you're getting from bottoms up, and factoring that into your plan. The issue was, there was always this disconnect between the traditional strategy teams who were not very connected to what's happening on the ground. So it does make sense to factor in, but there might also be an aspect of change management. So your own team maybe coming up with certain insights and signals which are more convenient for them to showcase. But the reality may be that there is a change required in that function and how that function operates and how sales operates essentially. So if you competition view, that how it is being done and how the future is going to shape it, it is also good to educate and manage that change with the team there to drive that implementation. So I think it's a good symbiotic relationship. You get some inputs from them, you shape your strategy or plan, and you may have to go back and give them some feedback on how they should operate.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for answering that.
Rahul, I see Rahul also on the call. Any questions from you? All right, so I think you probably may be getting more questions on the chat or on the Gap platform as people see this recording. But thanks a lot, Subhajit. I think really from the professionals' perspective who are aspiring for C-level positions and really leadership positions, you gave some very good perspective on how they should be going about their job to land up in great roles like yourself eventually. So I really enjoyed the discussion. Thanks so much. It was a great gupshup. I wish we had a coffee as well, but probably in few months' time we would do it this again, right? Thanks so much, Subhajit, and have a great day ahead. Good weekend.
Thanks a lot to the platform, to you, Rishi, and I wish all the members of this platform all the best for the future.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye bye.